All right, now we're going to talk about changes in the five senses during adulthood, and not just the five senses, but also some physical changes in outward appearance. Some of these you'll be very familiar with, but we're going to go ahead and go through them and review some of the big ones. All right, so the senses. So remember the senses. So you've got your vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch. All of them get weakened, reduced, less acute in some way. All of the senses become less acute over time, and the brain compensates in any one area by using other senses. So let's say your vision gets weaker. You try to use your other senses to figure out the things you'd normally figure out with vision. Your hearing becomes weaker, so you might start to rely more on others, like relying on your vision to try to figure out context and what's going on. And so over time, gradually for everybody, you're going to see noticeable differences. Now, you have some technology available, like you can wear glasses for your declining vision. You can have hearing aids. They can only do so much. Okay, let's talk about vision. Vision changes for everybody, even if you got really good eyes to start with. I did not wear glasses my whole life. I got to be about 40 and all of a sudden I was like, why can I not see anything? And I went to go get my eyes checked and they're like, ma'am, you really need glasses. You probably needed them a while ago. How you been functioning? And I'm just like, well, I just was always told that my eyes were fine. I didn't think I needed them. All right, now I can't imagine living without them. All right, so vision is very complicated. It involves 30 distinct brain areas, so anything could happen in any one of those areas to contribute to vision changes. Age affects each of those 30 areas in specific ways, so you have a variety of different changes in vision that could occur. Now, one thing that happens, peripheral vision, seeing out of the corner of your eye, seeing stuff that's off to the side. Peripheral vision narrows faster than frontal vision. So seeing things right in front of you, you retain that longer than being able to see things on the sides, on the periphery. Having a blind spot, essentially, or people being able to sneak up on you. And yes, changes in vision can absolutely interfere with driving. Some people, especially as they get to later in adulthood, and definitely when they get into late adulthood, some individuals, they are no longer able to drive because of their vision changes. My mom, for example, completely has lost night vision, so she cannot drive at night. And so other things that happen, the shape of the lens itself, the lens on the eye, the shape of the lens changes, and that can lead to some specific visual changes. Most people, the vast majority of people will need reading glasses by the time they're around age 50. Right? So even if you don't need, a full-blown prescriptive lenses, most people will at least need reading glasses to magnify the print for reading by the time they get to be about age 50. And many people will have other new problems that will show up, and they will need other sorts of assistance. Now, it's not just glasses. Sometimes people will be able to have laser surgery depending on what specific issue they're dealing with, or other type of surgeries may be needed for serious things like cataracts. But various things can happen to vision. Now, what about hearing? A lot of times, when people think of hearing loss, they think of that as something that happens when you're in late adulthood. But even in regular old adulthood, you start to see some changes in hearing. Hearing is most acute at about age 10. And in adulthood, as you get older, you have the potential for damage to your hearing, particularly if you work in an environment where you hear loud noises, or like you go to a lot of concerts, or you're a musician where there's the really highly amplified sound. Also, if you exercise with earphones or headphones or earbuds on, do not have it too loud, because it is not good for hearing. If you are bouncing around, exercising, and having loud noises piped into your ears, there's emerging evidence that that's not a good idea. So not that you can't use them at all, but not super loud. All right, and so what we see is high frequencies will be lost first. High frequencies are lost earlier than low frequencies, so you'll have more difficulty hearing certain type of sounds compared to others. And yeah, and we'll talk more about hearing loss when we get to late adulthood. All right. Changes in taste and smell. I'm not going to discuss in depth for the adulthood chapters. I will talk about them and some of the safety issues that come with those changes for late adulthood. Let's talk about the skin, touch and skin. All right, so one thing that happens as you get older is your skin can thin out, which means it can be damaged easily. And sometimes that means that sometimes people will look down and they'll be like, how did I get that bruise? How did I get that cut? Where the heck did that come from? And other things that can happen to skin. Skin becomes drier, rougher, thinner, and less flexible. Some of the reason for the changes that you see in skin are that you have a reduction in collagen. So collagen is like a filler. And reduction in collagen means that spaces that used to be full with this sort of plumping agent. I'm using a lot of terminology that sounds like it's from cosmetics commercials, and it is used in cosmetics commercials, so it might sound familiar. But essentially, without that collagen, you can start to see like the spaces between your skin cells, and they don't look as smooth, essentially. So you will develop things like wrinkles and fine line, and just not as smooth of a texture or appearance as you had when you were younger. Cells just beneath the surface become more visible, so not as homogeneous a look to the skin, and people start off with diversity in terms of how homogeneous their skin might look. And wrinkles, when they do appear, and they appear for everyone, even those who try to combat with surgery, there are wrinkles there somewhere on the body. All right, but when wrinkles appear, they typically appear around the eyes first, partially because using your smile muscles and sun damage, sun hitting the face. There's various reasons for that to happen. Now, one thing to note is that there are a lot of products that are products and procedures that are marketed as anti-aging. The thing about them is they're really not anti-aging. You are still aging. Your skin is still aging. A lot of the products work by filling in the space between those cells, trying to replace that lost collagen. So they're really not anti-aging. They are more plumping. They are more filling. And a lot of times it's putting some kind of fat or something similar so it can fill in those spaces. And so the thing is, you're still aging. The aging is still going on, even if your skin looks better. Now, hair. You're probably familiar with the fact that hair will change in texture and sometimes in color. And so you'll see that hair begins to turn gray or white or silver, if you want to embrace the more aesthetically pleasing term, celebrating the beauty of the hair. And it becomes thinner. Now, for some people have male pattern baldness, which a lot of that, you have that running in families. And then some people, for various health conditions and whatnot, you can have thinning hair, but just aging in general will lead to thinning hair, sometimes changes in hair texture, and just hair doing things it didn't do when you were younger, like things you have to do to style your hair or brush your hair or getting it into place. You have to start doing different things because it starts acting differently. A lot of people do color their hair, even though some people are rebelling and just letting it be. All right, like my gray streak, I'm like, there it is. There it is. I don't feel like dealing with going to the hair salon constantly to get that thing colored, and I like it. It makes me feel like, more not Morticia Adams, Lily Munster or something like that. But many people, especially women in our culture, will color their gray, they will color their hair. And so sometimes people are surprised when they start going gray, like in their 30s. And you can see it in some people in their 20s. And some people are born with gray streaks in their hair. As children, as adolescents, they're like, why do you have a white spot back there? Like, oh, some people do. So people who go gray when they start going gray younger than they think they should, sometimes that's influenced by the fact that all these people around them have been coloring their gray, and they don't realize that, you know, they went through these changes too. They've just been covering it. They've been going to the salon constantly to try to make sure they don't get the roots, so people don't know that they have gray under there. And recently I've seen this thing on TikTok. They have these people who are rebelling, and they're like, ladies, grow out your gray. And you know, they'll have the roots that are like this long, where it's like this part of the hair is completely silver and this part is whatever color they dyed it. And I'm like, I don't have to do that. I just left mine alone. I highly advocate, just leave the hair alone. Gray hair is beautiful. That's just my personal opinion. All right, some other changes in appearance. Have you heard that weight starts to stick to you more? It's true. It's science. It's not people making excuses. I get really annoyed when I see like a weight loss show with like, they're just making excuses. I'm like, that person is of the age where their metabolism changes. You need to acknowledge that. All right, so changes in shape. There's this thing called middle age spread. And this is basically where holding on to weight, particularly around the middle, is very easy. It becomes easier to put on weight and far more difficult to lose weight. Your body kind of clings to it. Metabolism slows down by as much as a third, even for healthy people who exercise all the time. All right, and then you also have changes in posture. The vertebrae in the backbone, all right, they have spaces between them. They have cartilage. You get reduction in that space, and so it becomes compressed. The backbone, the spine becomes compressed. It becomes shorter, essentially, and so people get reduced height. By the time you are getting towards the end of adulthood, you're getting ready for late adulthood, many people will have lost an inch or almost an inch in height. Just normal, healthy people, you lose an inch in height just from compression of the space between the vertebrae. Now, muscular atrophy. Even in healthy people, you got to watch out for muscles getting smaller, joints becoming less flexible and more stiff. Now, exercise can help with these things, but it doesn't completely eliminate these problems. Even in people who do the exercises that are beneficial, you still see these, you see more of these problems than when you were like in your early 20s. Now, agility also changes. Reduced strength, agility, and speed. Now, very importantly, health professionals recommend that adults, particularly when you get into that, you know, that over 40 range, but just adults in general, they recommend that when you engage in exercise, and everybody should be engaging in some exercise. In our society, exercise has kind of been marketed as a weight loss tool. That's not why exercise exists. Exercise exists on its own, and yeah, it could, you know, help you with losing weight. But exercise exists. It has benefits that have nothing to do with weight loss or trying to prevent weight gain or whatever, you know, people have come to think of it as. And so there are two types of exercise. You have your cardiovascular exercise, which is meant to get your heart pumping, and your strength training or conditioning exercise. A lot of people, particularly if they are focused on burning calories, getting skinny, getting smaller, a lot of people will focus on getting their cardio in. All right. A lot of these changes are helped if you also do strength conditioning, all right? So something where you have resistance with your muscles. So like weight training, certain types of yoga, different activities. Swimming can help with some things, but definitely not just cardio. Cardio is important. All right, it's important to get your heart pumping, but it is also important to use your muscles, to use your muscle strength and have full range of motion and get your stretching in, and all of those things are important. And it's not just for trying to lose weight, it's good for your body, to use your body for movement. And hopefully you find movement that brings you happiness and joy, so it doesn't feel like punishment, because people don't continue when it feels like punishment. All right, next video, when we talk about adulthood, we are going to acknowledge that old people like me still have sexual health and reproductive health to talk about. Sometimes students be like, ew, you're making me think of my mom. She does not ever have sex. All right. We will acknowledge that even when you're old, you still have sexual organs and a sex drive.